The noon sun hammered Silver Creek until the red dust shimmered like heat over iron. Stalls pressed shoulder to shoulder around the square, their canvas awnings sagging under the weight of summer. Leather and roasted corn mingled with horse sweat and smoke, thick enough to taste. Voices rose and collided, traders haggling, wagon wheels groaning, hooves striking earth in hard, impatient rhythms. Amid the clamor moved a woman the crowd barely noticed. Selena Brooks crossed the square with measured steps, her body full and strong, shaped by work rather than ease. Her faded brown dress clung to her back with sweat, patched thin at the shoulders where years of lifting had worn the cloth soft. Dark curls, once tied neat, had loosened and stuck to her brow. She stopped at a wagon and bent low, gripping a sack of flour heavier than it looked. The burlap scraped her palms, white dust spilled and ghosted across her damp arms. Her shoulders strained. She did not ask for help. She never did. People had taught her early that help came barbed. Better to carry your own weight, even when it bowed your spine. As she lifted, the sack slipped. Her heel skidded in it dust. Balance wavered. At that instant, riders trotted into the square. Hooves rang sharp against packed earth, cutting across the noise. Heads turned. At their center rode Nathaniel Carter, heir to Carter Ranch, the largest spread for 3 counties. He sat tall on a black gelding, white shirt crisp against sun-brown skin, boots polished bright. His wheat-colored hair caught the light. Gray-blue eyes scanned the square with practiced ease. He saw Selena stagger beneath the sack. A corner of his mouth curved before thought could catch it. "Careful there," he called, voice carrying. "That flour might break your back." A ripple of laughter followed, quick and cruel. The words struck like grit thrown into an open wound. Selena's arms trembled. The sack tugged her down, knees bending as the ground seemed to tilt. Nathaniel moved without thinking. He yanked the reins, swung from the saddle, and caught her shoulder before she could fall. Skin met skin. Heat flared in the brief contact. Sun, sweat, pulse. Selena lifted her face, dark eyes flashing up into his. For a breath, the square vanished. No laughter, no dust, only a strange stillness between them. Then a sharp whistle cut the moment. "Well now," one rider hooted, "looks like Nate's got himself a soft spot." Laughter burst loud and unchecked. Nathaniel recoiled as if burned. His hand dropped from Selena's shoulder. Pride snapped back into place, hard as buckled leather. Selena straightened on her own. She shifted the sack higher against her frame, jaw set. She did not answer. She did not look at the riders again. She only lifted her chin and walked on, each step slow, heavy, unyielding. The dust took her footprints and closed over them. Nathaniel watched her go, his mouth twisted into his usual smirk, a shield he'd worn since boyhood. Yet beneath it, something lodged beneath his ribs, an unfamiliar ache he could not shake loose. That night, fire tore through the eastern stables of Carter Ranch. A lantern fell, oil spilled, flame leapt hungry and fast, licking dry hay and wooden walls. Horses screamed, men shouted, smoke boiled thick and choking, clawing at eyes and lungs. Nathaniel fought his black stallion as fire swallowed the doorway. The rope burned his wrist as the horse reared, terror mad. Smoke seared his throat. Panic, real panic, split his chest for the first time in his life. Outside, Selena did not hesitate. She flung a bucket at the flames, steam hissing up, then plunged inside. Heat scorched her skin. Smoke burned her eyes. Through the chaos, she saw him, fallen, rope twisted around his wrist, bound to the panicked horse. She tore at the knot, ripping it loose, hauled him upright, braced his weight against her own. They staggered together through the choking dark. Beams groaned, fire roared. With clenched jaw she forced each step, dragging him toward the doorway she'd soaked.
They burst into the night just as part of the roof caved in behind them. Embers hissed, the ground shook. They fell hard on wet hay, breathless, faces inches apart. Firelight flickered in her eyes. In his, fear and something else, raw, unguarded. Nathaniel pushed himself up first, brushing straw from his shirt, reaching for the old smirk. "Thanks," he rasped, the word brittle as dry wind. He turned away before it could catch. Selena stayed on the ground a moment longer, hands trembling from heat and effort. She watched his back fade into smoke, her face calm, though something stirred within her she could not yet name. Long after the flames were beaten down, when the stables smoldered and the ranch settled into weary silence, Nathaniel lay awake with the taste of smoke still in his mouth. He told himself it meant nothing, only shock, only gratitude. Yet when he closed his eyes, he saw her steady gaze in the firelight, and the memory burned on. And somewhere in the quiet, a thought surfaced, soft, unwelcome, impossible to ignore. She had looked at him without asking, without fear, as if she did not see a master at all, as if she saw only a man who could fall. The night cooled, ash drifted, and in the hush after disaster, the first crack appeared in a pride that had never known resistance, setting the stage for a reckoning that would reach far beyond the dust of Silver Creek.
Morning broke pale and uneasy over Carter Ranch. The smoke from the burned stables still hung low, a bitter reminder clinging to the air. Horses stumped and snorted, unsettled by the charred scent. Men worked in subdued silence, voices lowered as though the land itself listened. Nathaniel Carter rode in from town just past sunrise, dust on his boots, confidence stitched back onto his posture like a well-worn coat. He dismounted with his usual swagger, but it did not sit right. The night before had lodged too deep beneath his skin. He was summoned to the house before he could escape to the range. The parlor was cool and spare, sunlight cutting through lace curtains. Hoyt Carter sat rigid in his chair, gray streaking his hair, spectacles balanced low on his nose. Miriam Carter stood near the window, arms folded tight, worry etched deep between her brows. "You nearly burned with that stable," Hoyt said, flatly, not looking up from the papers in his hand. Nathaniel scoffed. "It was handled." "By someone else," Miriam added, her voice sharper than usual. Silence pressed in. Hoyt folded the paper with deliberate care. "You're going to learn how this ranch runs, properly. Starting today, you'll work the ledgers." Nathaniel laughed, short and disbelieving. "You can't be serious." "You'll work them with Selena Brooks. She knows them better than anyone." The words landed like a slap. Nathaniel straightened, heat flared hot. "You expect me to take orders from a woman who—" Miriam's hand struck the table, cutting him clean off. "Enough." Her gaze held his, unyielding. "You either do this or your allowance ends today." The room went still. Nathaniel's grip tightened around his riding crop, veins standing out along his hand. Pride screamed at him to refuse, to storm out, to remind them who he was. But he saw it then, no bending, no softening. He turned without another word. The office sat near the barns, a squat wooden building with a single window facing the open pasture. Inside, the smell of old paper and ink mixed with leather and dust. Ledgers were stacked high, their spines cracked from years of use. Selena Brooks was already there. She sat straight-backed at the rough table, hair tied back neatly, a clean homespun dress smoothing her frame. Before her lay an open ledger, columns of numbers marching across the page beneath her steady pencil. Her movements were precise, practiced, unhurried. The door creaked. Nathaniel entered and dropped into a chair with exaggerated carelessness, stretching his legs out, twirling a pen between his fingers. "Hard to believe I've been dragged in here," he muttered. Selena did not look up. Belief isn't required. Attention is. The pen stilled. She slid the ledger across the table.
Her hand brushed his as it passed. Calloused, strong, warm. Nathaniel pulled back as if struck. His jaw tightened. "What is this?" "Last month's accounts," Selena replied. "Find what doesn't add up." He bent over the page. Rows of numbers blurred together, taunting him. Sweat beaded at his temple as he recalculated, scribbled, crossed out. Time dragged. The quiet pressed heavier than mockery ever had. At last, he shoved the ledger back with a thin smirk. "There, fixed." Selena skimmed the page once. 4 errors. Color flared hot up his neck. "That's impossible." She turned the book back to him and pointed. "Here, here, and here." The truth stared back at him in ink. She slid forward more papers, receipts, signatures, stock tallies. "These don't match your father's hand. The same trader skimmed 4 times. Nathaniel's chest tightened. "You're saying we're being robbed?" she said simply. Rage flared, then faltered, swallowed by a deeper shock. The ranch, his birthright, had been bleeding while he rode and drank and laughed. Outside, the wind moaned through the fence lines. Later that day, Hoyt sent them to walk the eastern pasture together. The sun beat down as they followed the sagging wire, boots crunching over dry grass. Selena noted weak posts in her ledger. Nathaniel swung a stalk of grass between his fingers, restless, uncharacteristically quiet. After a long stretch of silence, Selena spoke. "Someone like me doesn't deserve respect, do they?" The question fell soft but struck hard. Nathaniel stopped short. He turned to her profile, calm, steady, eyes fixed on the horizon. For once, words failed him. I never meant—" His boot caught on a buried stone. He lurched forward. Selena reached out on instinct. Their combined weight sent them both tumbling into the dust. They lay there a moment, stunned. Then Nathaniel laughed, awkward, startled, free. Selena pushed herself up, brushing dirt from her dress. The faintest quiver touched her mouth, as if holding back a smile. The prairie wind surged, flinging loose curls into Nathaniel's face. Without thinking, he reached up and brushed them back behind her cheek. His fingers grazed her sun-warmed skin. Time stalled. Their eyes locked, hers deep and unreadable, his stripped of swagger, unsettled. Selena stepped away first, resuming her measured pace along the fence. Nathaniel followed, hand tingling, heart pounding with a truth he was not yet ready to name. That afternoon, clouds pressed low and thunder muttered from the hills. Rain broke sudden and heavy as Nathaniel rushed to shut the stable doors. Selena appeared beneath the eaves, holding out a cloth. "You're soaked," he muttered, surprised to realize she was too. They sat side by side as rain hammered the roof, silence stretching, not awkward but easing. A gust drove rain inward. Selena shivered. Nathaniel guided her closer to the wall, his hand resting on her shoulder. Lightning flashed. Beads of water clung to her lashes. His fingers brushed her lips, hesitant, asking. She closed her eyes. Their mouths met, light, uncertain, then deeper. Heat flared against the chill. His hand fumbled at the buttons of her dress. Her hand closed over his wrist. "No," she said softly, "not like this." The words struck clean and cold. Nathaniel pulled back, shame flooding him, but beneath it, respect. As the storm raged on, something fundamental cracked open inside him, and pride, for the first time, began to loosen its grip.
After the storm-soaked evening beneath the stables, the air between Nathaniel Carter and Selena Brooks shifted into something careful and restrained. When their paths crossed during the day, their eyes slid away as though afraid of what might ignite if they lingered. Selena kept her distance, moving with quiet purpose through the yard, the office, the fields. Nathaniel noticed every absence, every moment she chose another path. The silence gnawed at him.
He snapped at the ranch hands, his voice sharp, his temper quick to flare. The crack of his whip struck dirt more often than necessary. Yet no amount of fury eased the hollow ache widening in his chest. Pride had always been his shield, but now it only pressed heavier, ill-fitting. One heavy afternoon, he abandoned his work and rode hard toward the creek behind the woods. Rain from days past had swollen the water into a raging torrent. White foam burst over hidden rocks, roaring loud enough to drown thought. Nathaniel dismounted near the edge, pacing, brooding, the noise of the river echoing the unrest inside him. He did not notice the slick stone beneath his boot until it gave way. The ground vanished. He plunged into freezing water, shock ripping the breath from his lungs. The current seized him at once, dragging him under, spinning him helpless. He clawed at nothing, panic exploding sharp and absolute. He could not swim. A shout rang out from the bank. A young hand saw him fall and sprinted away, voice breaking through the trees. "The master's in the river! He can't swim!" Selena did not hesitate. She dropped what she held and ran, skirts clutched tight as she tore through brush toward the roar. When she reached the bank, she did not pause to measure the danger. She dove. The cold slammed into her, stealing breath, numbing limbs. The current fought her every stroke, yanking her sideways, battering her with debris. She forced herself forward, eyes burning, lungs screaming. Through the churn she saw him, arms flailing, eyes wild with terror. She reached him and locked her arm around his shoulder. The river dragged them both, hurling them downstream until chance wedged them against a floating log. Selena clung with everything she had, fingers slipping, teeth clenched against the cold. Nathaniel gasped, coughing water, his grip tightening around her as though she were the last solid thing left in the world. Hands hauled them free at last. They collapsed onto the bank, soaked and shaking. Nathaniel did not release her then, his fingers locked around her arm as if letting go would cast her back into the current. Selena lay beside him, chest heaving, staring up at the gray sky until the world steadied. They were led to a small cabin tucked at the forest's edge. Inside, the hearth lay cold, straw piled thick along the floor. Selena struck flint with trembling hands, coaxing flame until warmth bloomed and smoke curled against the rafters. Their clothes clung heavy and dripping. She stripped her outer dress and wrung it dry before laying it near the fire. Nathaniel pulled off his shirt, muscles taut, skin marked by years of riding and work. They sat apart, divided by straw and silence. Firelight made every distance visible. At last, Nathaniel spoke, his voice raw from cold and something deeper. "Every word I ever used to wound you, I cursed myself afterward. But pride," he swallowed hard, "pride made me say what I never meant." Selena kept her gaze fixed on the flames. They flickered in her eyes, steady, guarded. He shifted closer, then stopped. "May I come nearer?" He moved anyway, slow, careful. Selena stiffened, then closed her eyes, breath trembling as he lowered beside her. He brushed damp curls from her shoulder, revealing a faint scar along her skin. "Who hurt you?" he whispered. She did not answer with words. Instead, she caught his hand and pressed it to her chest, to the quickened thrum beneath. Her gaze lifted at last, no longer fleeing. Barriers broke. Nathaniel leaned in, his mouth finding hers, timid at first, then fierce, as if the truth of every silence poured through the kiss. His arms drew her close, holding not as a master, but as a man stripped bare of pretense. Selena yielded, circling her arms around his neck, drawing him deeper. The fire roared higher, painting their shadows across the rough walls. What followed was not hunger alone, but release, fear melting into trust, shame into forgiveness, two souls meeting without titles or chains. Cloth fell away into straw, skin warmed against skin, their breaths tangled, their hearts hammering in wild, shared rhythm. Outside, rain still drummed faint and distant. Inside, the night burned bright. When the fire sank to embers, they lay entwined, breaths quieting, the world narrowed to warmth and stillness. Smoke clung to the rafters. Stars broke through the clouds beyond the small window, glittering cold and clear. Morning came too soon. Selena stirred first, sitting up quickly, dragging a rough cloth around her shoulders. Nathaniel fumbled with his shirt, suddenly clumsy, words caught somewhere between hope and fear. Neither spoke as they stepped out into the clean dawn. They walked back toward the ranch side by side, yet each kept a measured space, as though distance might hide what had already changed forever. Breakfast passed as always. Hands ate. Spoons clattered. Nathaniel sat at the head, face calm, untouched. Selena kept her eyes on her bowl. Beneath the table, his hand found hers. She startled, then allowed her fingers to curl faintly into his grasp. From that morning on, something unnamed bound them, secret, stolen, irresistible. Glances lingered, touches found excuses. In the shadows they met, by the creek, in the stables, among ledgers scattered to the floor. By day, distance. By night, fire. Selena knew the road they walked invited storms, whispers, contempt, judgment. She knew the world would not forgive them easily. Yet when Nathaniel held her scarred hand as if it were sacred, when he murmured her name in the dark, her heart softened despite the danger. And Nathaniel, for the first time in his life, felt his pride crack wide enough to let love in. Neither yet understood the cost, but the river had changed everything, and there would be no turning back.
Rumors traveled faster than horses in Silver Creek. They slipped between fence posts and through open doors, rode on laughter and sharpened glances. By the time Selena Brooks sensed the shift, the town had already decided what story it preferred to tell. A woman like her, a man like him, an arrangement, not affection. The whispers followed her through the market, curling close to her ears like smoke. She heard them pause when she passed, felt eyes linger on her back, weighing, judging. Some women looked at her with open scorn, others with curiosity, edged by envy. Men smirked, their gazes rude and dismissive, as though her worth had been measured and found wanting. Selena kept her head high. She always had. But the words found their way in anyway. At Carter Ranch, Nathaniel's behavior had not gone unnoticed. He spoke more softly to the hands. He worked longer hours. He corrected mistakes without shouting. The change unsettled people who had grown used to his sharpness. It unsettled his parents even more. Miriam watched him from the doorway as he reviewed invoices with Selena one afternoon, their shoulders angled slightly toward each other, a quiet rhythm passing between them. When Selena excused herself, Miriam did not wait. "You are risking everything," she said as soon as the door closed. Nathaniel stiffened. "I'm running this ranch better than ever." "That is not what I mean." Hoyt Carter entered then, face grim. He shut the door firmly behind him. "The town is talking." Nathaniel met his father's stare. "Let them." Hoyt's jaw tightened. "They are saying you are being manipulated, that you've lost your judgment." Miriam stepped forward. "And they are saying worse about her." The words hit harder than expected. Nathaniel's hands clenched. "She saved my life, twice." "That does not make her suitable," Hoyt replied coldly. Silence fell heavy. Nathaniel spoke through his teeth. "You taught me a man's worth is shown by his actions." "And I taught you the world does not forgive foolish choices," Hoyt shot back. "You cannot marry sentiment."
I am not a boy chasing a passing fancy, Nathaniel said. I care for her. Miriam's eyes softened, but only briefly. Care does not erase reality. Nathaniel turned away, fury burning low and dangerous. He did not see Selena standing just outside the door, ledger pressed to her chest, the final words sinking deep. That evening she walked alone to the edge of the pasture, where the land dipped toward the creek. The sky blazed orange and red, the sun sinking heavy and slow. Grass whispered around her ankles. The air smelled of dust and distant rain. She pressed a hand to her chest, steadying the ache there. She had known this moment would come. Nathaniel found her at dusk, boots crunching softly behind her. "You left early," he said, gentler than usual. Selena did not turn. "I heard." He stopped short. Heard what? Enough. The silence stretched between them, taut as wire. She faced him then, eyes dark, expression composed in a way that frightened him. "This cannot continue." His heart lurched. "What are you saying?" "I am saying," she said carefully, "that I will not be the reason your name is dragged through mud." He stepped closer. "I don't care what they say. I do." The words trembled despite her control. "I have lived a lifetime being reminded of what I am not. Too large, too old, too plain, too much of everything the world doesn't want." Her voice softened, thinned. "I will not be pitied into belonging." Nathaniel reached for her hands. She did not pull away, but she did not tighten her grip either. "I am not young anymore, and I am tired of hoping." His throat burned. "You are not too old to love." She shook her head faintly. "You believe that now, but the world will test you. It always does." Before he could answer, laughter drifted from the path. Two women from town, pausing when they saw them together. One murmured something under her breath. The other's smile was sharp as glass. Selena stepped back, releasing his hands. That night, the words she had spoken echoed louder than the gossip ever could. "I'm too old to love." The next morning, she did not come to the office. Nathaniel searched the ranch, unease coiling tighter with each hour. He found her at the far edge of the property, loading her belongings onto a borrowed wagon. A single trunk, a bundle of clothes, years of work reduced to what could be carried. "You're leaving," he said, disbelief raw in his voice. She did not stop tying the rope. "Yes." "To because of what they think?" he demanded. "Because of what I know," she answered softly. "If you truly care for me, you will let me go." The word struck him like a blow. He wanted to pull her into his arms, to promise defiance and devotion. But when he saw her resolute in her eyes, he understood this was not fear, this was dignity. The wagon rolled out at midday, wheels creaking, dust rising behind it. Nathaniel stood alone at the gate long after it disappeared beyond the bend. The ranch felt hollow without her presence. Ledgers sat untouched, meals tasted of nothing, nights stretched long and empty, sleep refusing to come. Every corner held echoes, her voice, her quiet strength, her steady gaze. Then, 3 weeks later, a letter arrived. It bore the seal of the county court. Hoyt Carter's debts, hidden, long ignored, had been called in. The ranch faced foreclosure. Nathaniel read the notice twice, then a third time, and in the stillness that followed, one truth rang louder than any whisper the town had ever spread. Without Selena Brooks, he was about to lose everything that truly mattered. Pride had cost him once. Now it would demand payment, and he would have to decide, at last, what he was willing to sacrifice to win her back.
The day the notice was nailed to the courthouse door, Silver Creek buzzed with barely hidden satisfaction. Carter Ranch, untouchable for generations, stood on the brink of ruin. Men leaned against posts, pretending indifference. Women murmured behind gloved hands. Pride, once towering, now cracked in full view of the town. Nathaniel Carter did not hide. He rode straight to the bank, dust streaking his coat, eyes clear and unflinching. The banker laid out figures with thinly veiled relish. Nathaniel listened without interruption, then signed away his allowance, his inheritance rights, every comfort he had once taken for granted. "I'll work the debt," he said evenly. "Name the terms." The banker blinked. "You'll lose your standing." Nathaniel met his gaze. "Then I'll earn it back." By sundown, word had spread. Nathaniel Carter was no longer the pampered heir. He rose before dawn, worked beside hired hands, ate what they ate, slept where there was space. He sold horses he loved. He cut land that had belonged to his family for decades. Pride fell away piece by piece until nothing remained but resolve. And still, it was not enough. Numbers blurred, deals failed, the debt loomed cold and merciless. Only then did he ride out beyond the county line, following a rumor of a woman who kept ledgers sharper than any blade. Selena Brooks lived in a small settlement by the river, a place that smelled of wood smoke and damp earth. She worked the trading post, calm and capable, her presence steadying chaos as it arose. When Nathaniel stepped inside, conversation faltered. She looked up slowly. Time folded in on itself. He removed his hat and stood there, bareheaded and unguarded. "I am not here to ask you to save my ranch." Her eyes searched his face, wary. "Then why are you here?" "I'm here to tell you I was wrong," he said, "about everything that mattered." She said nothing. He continued, voice firm but stripped of command. "I let the world speak louder than my heart. I let my name matter more than your worth. I won't do that again." Selena crossed her arms. "Words are easy." "I know. That's why I brought proof." He laid the court notice on the counter. "I gave up my inheritance. I'm working the debt as a man, not a master. I lost the ranch anyway." The room breathed. Selena's composure cracked, not much, but enough. "You came all this way to tell me you failed?" "I came to tell you," he said quietly, "that I would rather fail beside you than succeed without you." Silence stretched long and deep. Outside, the river murmured, steady and patient. Selena stepped around the counter. She studied him closely, as if weighing the truth of his soul. At last, she reached out and took his hand. "Come," she said simply. They returned to Silver Creek together, not in secret, not in haste. When they arrived, the town gathered, drawn by curiosity sharp as hunger. Nathaniel dismounted first, then offered his hand to Selena without hesitation. Whispers surged. He faced them all. "This woman," he said, voice carrying, "is my equal. She saved my life. She saved my ranch when I could not. If you cannot respect her, you need not respect me." A murmur rippled, shock, disbelief, something like awe. Hoyt Carter stepped forward, eyes rimmed with age and regret. He bowed his head. "I was wrong," he said aloud. "The ranch stands because of her." Miriam followed, tears bright in her eyes. "And because of you." The debt was settled within the week, not by charity, but by skill. Selena restructured the accounts, exposed fraud, renegotiated contracts. The ranch survived, leaner but honest. On a quiet evening, as the sun sank gold across the fields, Nathaniel knelt before Selena in the tall grass, not with rings or grand declarations, but with open hands. "I cannot promise ease, only truth." Selena smiled, a slow, radiant thing born of hard-won faith. "That is enough." They married beneath the wide sky, no finery, only those who mattered present. The town watched, some humbled, some changed. Later, as dusk settled and the world grew soft, Selena rested her head against Nathaniel's chest.
He pressed his lips to her hair. "You once said you were too old to love," he murmured. She laughed quietly. "I was wrong." He held her closer, the past finally laid to rest, and Silver Creek learned at last that love does not belong to the young, the thin, or the proud. It belongs to the brave.